Alright guys, we have a bunch of interesting stories to discuss on today's podcast. Remember guys, this podcast posts each and every single Sunday. We run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. And this first news story kind of sucks if you're a Dolphins fan. This player has been a playmaker for a long time here. Obviously the last few years we've had a really pretty good track record with undrafted free agents in general, and he's obviously one of the better ones that we have signed in the last 10 years, really. Chiefs to sign running back Damian Williams. The Chiefs are signing running back Damian Williams. Ian Rappaport of NFL.com tweets, it's a one-year deal worth $1.5 million. Williams recently had shoulder surgery and will miss most of the offseason, but the team hopes that he'll be available for training camp, according to Rappaport. The Chiefs will start Kareem Hunt at running back, and they hope to have Spencer Ware as the number 2, blah, blah, blah. Enough about the Chiefs. Williams has spent the last 4 seasons in the league with the Dolphins, where he was used primarily as a pass catcher. Williams has 85 receptions for 733 yards and 6 touchdowns. To his credit, with just 133 carries for 477 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Damian Williams was a very good role player for us for a very long time. And when him and Kenyon got on the field and they were both healthy, that was one heck of a combo. And then obviously Damian Williams suffered his injury, and then Kenyon got even more reps there, and he did amazing. Or maybe I got that mixed up. I don't know when Kenyon or Damian, I can't remember when Damian got injured, but I remember, regardless, you guys would have to let me know that down in the comment section below. But Damian Williams, really good player, was a huge part of our 2016 run. A lot of clutch touchdowns in that run. He had a very good season this past season. A lot of clutch catches in 2016. You think about the Chargers, the Jets, the Bills. He made both of the games against the Bills made game-changing plays where he broke out that run. I think it was he caught a pass in the flat, broke a couple tackles, ran, and then obviously carried an entire pile of players into the end zone with him to score what eventually, I think, gave us the lead against the Buffalo Bills, and we eventually went on to win that game. So he's been a very good role player for us for a very long time. Obviously, Adam Gase was very high on him. He was always talking about how he's a great practice player. He has great attention to detail. He's obviously super versatile coming out of the backfield, and as well as running the football. He will be sorely missed, but one of the things we're going to talk, running back is going to be a very big topic on today's podcast, with a lot of different moves as such, but there's so many good running backs in this upcoming draft. When you talk about Darius Geis, Saquon Barkley, Ronald Jones, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, there's so many, and there's 3 more I can name that are potential NFL starters. There's so many good running backs. I really want the Dolphins to take a flyer out on one of them at least, and I'm very excited to see which one they do that with, because there's so many ones that fit Adam Gase's system to a T. And there's people in there, I think the most talented, other than Kenyon, because I cannot wait to see what Kenyon does in this offense as the starter, really his first year as a starter. Obviously, I think he will start week 1, but they have said they want to run a 2-back system. And I think the best backfield Adam ever had was in Denver when he had Willis McGahee, and he had a pretty good stable of backs. I think Kenyon is Sean Moreno, not Willis McGahee. I think Kenyon's way more talented than he ever was, really. But I'm very excited to see what he can do with another pass catcher, because what Sean Moreno was able to do, and he wasn't even a really good receiving back throughout his career, but when he got with Adam Gase, he had almost 1,000 yards receiving. Obviously, was really good on the ground. I'm excited to see who he pairs Kenyon with. We obviously have another big-time name coming into the building that we're going to talk about here in a second. But my point is, I'm very excited to see who Adam chooses in the draft, because I 100% think the Dolphins are going to take one. It could be in the 3rd or 4th round. I hope somehow we can get our hands on Sony Michel, because I think that would be a tremendous fit for this offense, and I think he would help us put points up on the board. But the running back situation is a very interesting one, because I do think we have a Pro Bowler in Kenyon Drake. I've said that for a long time now. I love Kenyon. I love his talent. I think he fits the system to a T. Cannot wait to see what he does as the starter. If he put up those numbers and stayed healthy through a 16-game season that he did in his limited time starting, he would have been a Pro Bowl running back by far. He would have been one of the best in the AFC. So I'm very excited to see who we pick to complement him. And I still think that the Dolphins will do that despite this next news story. Dolphins to sign running back Frank Gore. Obviously, this guy is a Miami hero, so I'm sure a bunch of you guys are excited about this. The Dolphins have agreed to sign running back Frank Gore, according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. It's a 1-year deal for the veteran. Gore, a potential future Hall of Famer, which he will be, has the opportunity to finish his career where it all began. Gore was born in Coral Gables, Florida, and made his name at the University of Miami. After 10 seasons in San Francisco and 3 in Indianapolis, he gets to ply his craft in Miami once again. The Dolphins project to start Kenyon Drake at running back, but the opportunity is there for Gore to split carries with him. The remainder of Dolphins running back depth chart is decidedly less accomplished than Gore, as Sonoris Perry and Davion Smith and Brandon Radcliffe are all former undrafted free agents and have had minimal live action on their resume. Gore, 35, has 14,000 plus career rushing yards to his credit, as well as a 5-time Pro Bowl selection. He nearly turned in a 10th 1,000-yard season in 2017, but he averaged just 3.7 yards per carry. Gore is no longer the star that he once was with the 49ers, but he can still be a useful piece in Miami's backfield. From the Dolphins' perspective, it's a low-risk proposition that they can bail on if necessary without any real financial penalty. So I'm not worried about the contract. I love the signing, and it sucks that DeMarco Murray wasn't signed here, because obviously the narrative of the Dolphins offseason has been they want to change, they want the culture change, they want players that are leaders, hard workers, and set an example for. We have so many young players on this team, so we wanted to add veteran presences that are great leaders. We added Josh Sitton. And from everything we've heard about Josh Sitton and interviews, and when you talk about when you watch interviews with former teammates, he's a great leader. He's a really goofy dude. He reminds me a lot of Joe Thomas. He has that kind of a personality where everybody kind of gravitates around him. So I'm very excited to put somebody as talented as he is into the locker room, but also obviously he's a great leader as well. So obviously Frank Gore, from his time in Indianapolis, everybody that you hear from says you wouldn't want anybody else in your locker room to teach your young guys. And they said the same thing about DeMarco Murray. I think DeMarco Murray is obviously 5 years younger than Frank Gore, and I think he can still be a Pro Bowler in this league. So it sucks that we couldn't nail him down, but to get Frank Gore, it's basically the same move, but just with a player that has a lot more tread on his tires, and a player that's obviously a lot older, and Frank Gore that might not give you the same production that DeMarco Murray would give you. But I'm excited to see what he comes in, because obviously, we've talked about it a million times, but Kenyon Drake, the reason he didn't get as much playing time early on in his career, and obviously the only reason he did get playing time was out of necessity, is because Adam Gase he's a stickler. He doesn't care about your talent. If you're not in line with what he wants you to do, you're not going to get onto the field. And that's one thing that we've learned over the years with Adam Gase, when we've drafted people like Jakeem Grant and Leonte Carew, and some of these younger guys that haven't been able to see the field because they're not where they need to be, according to Adam Gase, when it comes to the playbook. And that sucks for us fans, because we want to see some of these guys play because they're talented. Then obviously Kenyon Drake finally got onto the field because of necessity due to the J.J. trade, and we saw what he did. But my point is Kenyon Drake, him and Adam have had their issues with each other in terms of attention to detail, running the plays the right way, doing what Adam wants on each and every single given play. Adam in the past has said that he doesn't like how Kenyon dances in the backfield, and obviously when his rookie year he did that a lot, and obviously there's a couple times where he lost us a lot of yards, and that's one of the more reasons he didn't get as much playing time, because there's no doubt in my mind that in terms of talent and a scheme fit, he is more of a scheme fit than Jay was, and he was definitely more talented than Damian Williams ever was. So the only reason he didn't get playing time was due to the fact that Adam just didn't trust him. So I think Frank Gore is showing him the ropes and how to prepare. And this is things that you hear from former NFL players. I think it's going to be good for this team, and I think it fits with the Dolphins' theme and their philosophy going into this offseason in terms of really getting the players that they want into this locker room. So at least they're more, it's different when they say things like that, because most of the time you hear that about NFL players and superstars when they leave your building. They always it doesn't matter what team it is, the brass always makes up an excuse to feed the fans, so it's a little bit easier to let go. And most of the time it's lies. And at least the Dolphins are carrying out through with what they said that they were going to do, in terms of they want to put the right guys in place in this locker room, so the offense runs better. And I actually believe it, because what they have been doing is exactly that. So at least that part isn't a lie, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but again, guys, really interesting stuff with the running backs. Now we have Frank Kenyon, Sonoris Perry if he makes the team, Davon Smith if he makes the team, and then obviously in the draft there's a ton of really good running backs. This next news story made me sick to my stomach. I cannot believe this particular player is on our team, if I'm being honest with you, because I have never been a big fan of his ever since he was coming out of, I think, Arizona State. If I'm not mistaken, that's where he played college. I've never liked him. He was always a ceiling guy in terms of he has all the physical traits to be a very good quarterback. And I just never, ever liked this particular player. Dolphins to sign quarterback Brock Osweiler. The Dolphins have reached an agreement with quarterback Brock Osweiler, a source tells Adam Schefter of ESPN.com. Osweiler's new deal will reunite him with Adam Gase, who worked with Osweiler as Denver's quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator from 2012 to 2014. In Miami, Osweiler will take the place on longtime backup Matt Moore, who was never expected to re-sign with the Dolphins. Other quarterbacks on the Dolphins roster include Ryan Tannehill, David Fales, and Brandon Doughty. The 27-year-old Osweiler didn't get a chance to start for the Broncos until after Gase had left the building, and the former second-round pick's greatest NFL success came in a 2015 campaign where he started 7 games for the eventual Super Bowl champions. It's been a whirlwind for Osweiler since that time. He inked and failed an ill-fated deal with the Texans, was dealt to the Browns, and spent the 2017 season back in Denver. While the top tier of free agent quarterbacks have come off the board fairly quickly, there are still a number of backups types available. Aside from Stanton, the list of number 2 passers on the market includes Blaine Gabbert, Derek Anderson, Drew Stanton, and Geno Smith. Sorry I've been short of breath. I have no idea why, but I have been. But what I think about this is just, first of all, I think Brock Osweiler is the worst as a starter by far. I don't even think, to be honest with you, he's a good backup, but he's had good games here and there. Not even good games in my opinion. He was carried by a Super Bowl champion team. Everybody thought, oh, this guy's the next big thing. He goes to Houston, gets this big money. Obviously, it was an aberration. It wasn't true. It was fake news. Brock Osweiler was just carried by a very good football team, and that elevated his talents. And I've just never been a big fan. I've never been a big fan of his. I don't think he sees the field well. His accuracy is below average, and he obviously turns the ball over in a multitude of different ways. Yeah, I think he brings the talent level of your team down as well. So I don't think, there was reports that he might not even make the roster, which is a good thing. Now, listen, some of the other quarterbacks on this list I would have picked way before I would have ever picked Brock. Like, you talk about Blaine Gabbert. I would have rather had Blaine Gabbert, Derek Anderson, but obviously former Pro Bowler Derek Anderson, who was a tremendous backup for the Panthers for a very long time. Much rather would have had him. Drew Stanton, he's probably on Brock's level, I would say. And Geno Smith, we're not even going to talk about Geno Smith. But Derek Anderson, I would have picked out of the group. Now, this could have been a money thing, which I 100% believe, because Derek Anderson's a little bit more high profile. Same thing with Blaine Gabbert. Brock would have probably been the cheaper one. But David Fales, we just re-signed, who, in my opinion, is on the level of Brock, if not better. David, when you think about it, almost be a team that was trying to make the playoffs. So it was like pushing for a playoff berth. In the last game of the season, a team that obviously went on to 9-7, almost beat the Jaguars in the AFC wildcard round, had a pretty decent performance against them. He was kind of, we probably would have won the game if we didn't go for it on 4th down so many times, but that's neither here nor there. I just thought David Fales was a better option there. And, I don't know. I just really do not like Brock Osweiler. I don't think he's a good player. And again, just to clarify this, just so you guys, if you're confused about it, the Dolphins are still, we're about to, here, let me read this to you right here. I have it actually right here. I didn't think I had it, but I do. Dolphins, this next news story, Dolphins still on the hunt for quarterback help. The Dolphins' search for quarterback help this offseason did not end with the signing of Brock Osweiler to a 1-year deal. Sources told Armando Salguero of the Miami Herald Osweiler will have to earn his role as the backup quarterback behind Ryan Tannehill, as the team may still look to add a quarterback in the draft and have shown interest in several players expected to go in the first round. Okay, so there you go. That sums it up. The Dolphins are still going to take a quarterback. He is not a lock to make the roster. So yeah, thank God. And I didn't expect really anything else. So yeah, I just, hopefully he isn't the backup is my point, because I would have been totally fine even if we didn't get a quarterback in the draft. I would have been totally fine with David Fales as our backup quarterback, and I wouldn't be surprised if David beat out Brock in camp. So it's just my 2 cents there. But like I said, there's if money was an issue, I can understand it, and that excuse wipes this opinion wipes it away. If the money was just too much for some of these other guys, but there's no doubt that Blaine Gabbert, Derek Anderson, those two are way more talented than Brock. But backup quarterbacks now are a high premium, but I think those two are still unsigned. But you guys would have to tell me, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are asking for money, more money. Maybe they have signed deals since then. I don't know. Dolphins. This next news story: Dolphins expected to use William Hayes at defensive tackle to help fill the shoes of Ndamukong Suh, who played 877 snaps last season, the 6th most out of defensive tackles in the NFL. The Dolphins plan on using William Hayes at both defensive end and defensive tackle, per Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. Jackson also expects defensive linemen Jordan Phillips, Levon Gottschalk, and Vince Taylor to pick up extended playing time with the loss of Suh. Obviously, naturally, that would happen. But there's one big eye-popping stat there, though. 877 snaps for a player who plays in the interior on a football team is insane. That's a lot of snaps, especially on the defensive side of the football, where you're just mauling people constantly. And to stay healthy, like Suh has done over his career, is pretty miraculous, just in general. So yeah, and to play at that high of a level on that consistent of a basis, week in and week out, with that many snaps, that's why he's going to be a Hall of Famer right there. It's almost impossible to do. It's literally almost impossible. So to replace that is going to be difficult, especially since William Hayes has a terrible injury history, and we felt the wrath of that last season. So that's going to be an issue, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins did something in the draft to address some of that depth, but I think we have really good depth already, and if we didn't take one, I would be totally fine with that, because I do think the depth that we have there already is good enough. Like Jordan Phillips, Levon Gottschalk, Vincent Taylor, William Hayes you can use with his versatility. I think, we have 3, if not 4. I think Vincent's probably, his ceiling is a rotational player, but I think Devon could be a solid starter in this league. Jordan could be a Pro Bowler with his talent. We don't know if he can stay consistent. And William Hayes is obviously one of the better run defenders in the league. So I think those 3 in rotation, and the 4 throwing Vincent Taylor in there, is totally fine if we didn't take him. But to replace 877 snaps of Ndamukong Suh is not going to be easy. So hopefully, if Will Hayes goes down, that's an issue. So I do think the Dolphins probably, I wouldn't say need, I think needs probably, there's other needs on this team that are obviously greater. So you got to kind of balance that out. I think this is one of the more deep positions on this team. So, but again, to replace that many snaps ain't going to be easy. Dolphins will look to address kicker needs through draft. The Dolphins have been doing their due diligence on kickers available in the upcoming draft. According to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, by the way, all of these, I think I forgot to mention, all of these news stories are from Pro Football Rumors. Available in the upcoming draft, according to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, in the hopes of replacing Cody Parkey, who was picked up by the Bears, the Dolphins worked out New Mexico kicker Jason Sanders last week. Will get an extended look at Miami kicker. Miami will also get an extended look at Miami kicker Michael Badgley during Miami's Pro Day on March 28th. Jackson also reported the Dolphins are high on Auburn's Daniel Carlson and Florida's Eddie Pinheiro. Who the heck knows? Daniel Carlson, I saw at the combine. He kicked pretty well. I think he kicked like a 50 some odd yard field goal. He's just not very consistent. So yeah, I think Michael's pretty good. Daniel Carlson's probably got the most talent out of the group. Who knows? But yeah, the Dolphins do need a kicker. And our special team. I'm forgetting names left and right. Rizzy, our special teams coach, who I cannot remember his first name right now for some reason. Too many things going on. One of the better special team coaches in the league, probably second to only I would say the Ravens and the Rams with John Fossil there. I think he's probably third or second on that list. He's just one of the Darren Rizzi, excuse me, one of the best special team coaches in the league. So yeah, I think he'll figure that out fine. It's one of the better ran units on our team. So Dolphins linebackers have to cover tight ends. This comes from the Finsider, and it's absolutely true. The Miami Dolphins have struggled with finding a linebacker capable of covering a tight end for a way too long. It's true. In a division that features Rob Gronkowski, that is a horrible issue to have. Every time the Dolphins seem to have linebackers ready to solve the problem, injuries or decline in play seem to immediately jump up and bite them. And the part of the problem is the lack of pass-catching seam-threatening tight ends against who they practice. This year, the Dolphins will be looking to add a linebacker in the draft, someone they can line up with Raekwon McMillan and Kiko Alonso, locking down the linebacker corps for at least the 2018 season. Are there coverage linebackers the team can find this year? Roquan Smith, one of the top prospects projected to the Dolphins with their first-round pick. Smith is an excellent coverage linebacker who would be able to step in immediately to the starting role with the Dolphins. Smith flies around the field and can make plays just about anywhere. One thing I want to say about Roquan Smith, and one of the more impressive things I've ever seen, is Terrell Davis went to Georgia's Pro Day to watch Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. And obviously Roquan Smith was there, and he said that Roquan Smith was one of the better linebackers he's seen, and he said the Broncos should pick him with the top 5 pick. So that is high praise from a Hall of Fame running back like Terrell Davis. He was that impressed with Roquan Smith, seeing him in person, and I think that's about as good of praise as you could say about a linebacker. So if Roquan Smith is drafted by the Dolphins, they're getting a perennial Pro Bowl type of a player, in my opinion. I think he's the best linebacker. I think my second best linebacker we'll talk about here in a second. Tremaine Edmunds, the other option to be the first linebacker off the board. Edmunds can play anywhere in the linebacker, in any of the 3 linebacker positions, and he would give the Dolphins the flexibility at the position they covet. He is probably a better run stopper or pass rusher than he is a coverage linebacker, but he has the speed to be able to fill in that role. I like Roquan better. I think he fits our scheme better than Tremaine Edmunds. I think he's better in space than Tremaine Edmunds. You guys always say I get his name wrong. I hope I'm getting it right now. But yeah, I think he would be my in terms of a scheme fit and who I think would have the most success with the Dolphins. I think Roquan would be 1. I think Edmunds would probably 3 or 4 on my list, and I'm not even joking around. I think he's more of a 3-4 guy than he is a 4-3 guy, and he's young. He's super young, and I don't think he's going to be the immediate impact that Roquan will be. And I still think Roquan has the same ceiling as Tremaine Edmunds. Tremaine better have he has more talent in terms of physical gifts, probably down the road, you can make an argument for, but Roquan's right there with him, and he has all the instincts in the world. Obviously, SEC product. So I just like Roquan better. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this guy's name, but Vander Ish, or whatever the heck his name is, from Boise State, who I think is I would put him over Tremaine because I think he would fit the scheme a little bit better. This is Vander Esch from Boise State, the linebacker, who a lot of people are comparing to Brian Urlacher, which I think is a little crazy. But he plays like a run stopper, pass rusher, using his size to his advantage. But Vander Esch has the quickness to also be a really talented coverage linebacker. He needs time to add more strength for the NFL game, but he should be able to contribute as soon as he gets selected, likely in the 2nd round. Definitely would be a great pick for the Dolphins in general. So yeah, this is my second favorite linebacker right here in the draft. Rashaan Evans, potentially a star running stuffing middle linebacker. Evans still has a ton of speed that could be used as a weak side linebacker asked to cover. He is a really strong sideline to sideline player, but he might not fit the Dolphins perfectly as they already have McMillan, who is a run stopper power linebacker, and Kiko Alonso, who is best as a middle linebacker despite being asked to play outside last year. I disagree with that. I think Rashaan Evans would be totally fine in pass coverage. Like they said, he's a speed guy. I think if you want to plug him in at weak side linebacker, I think he would do a tremendous job, and especially in our scheme where, the 3 linebackers, as Matt Burke always says, really don't have a specific position, despite they really do, because one lines up in the middle, the other one lines up to the left, and the other one lines up to the right, despite what he says. But I think he would fit the scheme better than Tremaine would right away, and I think he would make a bigger impact right away than Tremaine would. And I think the Boise State kid would do the same thing. So, yeah. Some of the other guys left, but I think we should keep moving on, is Jerome Baker, Darius Leonard, and Shaquem Griffin, who I love Shaquem Griffin. We'll talk about Shaquem Griffin here. Shaquem Griffin, you had to know... We'll talk about it. Okay, here we go. You had to know he would make my list of potential linebackers for the Dolphins. Griffin has unmatched speed for his size and position. He is probably more of a pass rusher linebacker than he is a coverage guy, but he can do just about everything you ask of him as a linebacker. His exceptional combine performance included showing he has coverage skills, even if he is better at getting after the quarterback. Guessing where an NFL team would draft him is futile. What I think about Shaquem Griffin, I think he's a package guy. I do not think he's a 3-down guy. I do not think he will ever be a dominant player against the run. I think he's way too... He looks like a DB. He runs like a DB. But he also has tremendous pass rushing skills. When his get off on the edge is ridiculous. And he obviously has that. He can extend his arm to get some of those tackles off of him, to get him a little space to get around the corner there and sack the quarterback. But I definitely think he's a package guy. I think you want to throw him in the dime package. You want to throw him even in your nickel package. I think you could throw him in as an extra DB, and he would be tremendous in terms of his speed is ridiculous. And if you want to put just, you could really play around with that a lot, especially in your dime. You could throw a dime package out there and still be able to defend the run at a decent pace with him out there, because he has experience in the trenches. So Shaquem Griffin definitely adds a versatility factor to your defense that none of these guys could, and you could use him in a variety of different ways. And if we somehow got him in the 3rd round, I think that would be an amazing pick because of his versatility, and it would help this defense out a lot. And matchup wise on defense, we could do a lot of things with that, and that's something that the Dolphins really don't have. Is they don't have a lot of guys that they can plug and play in a lot of different positions and be okay with that. And I think Shaquem Griffin would definitely add athleticism that is needed on this defense, and a playmaking ability in a variety of different areas that is definitely needed on this defense. So if we somehow got him in the later rounds, that would be a tremendous pick. Alright, this next news story, this comes from the Palm Beach Post. 2018 NFL Draft, can Mark Andrews be Miami's tight end answer in the 3rd round? The Miami Dolphins don't have a starting tight end. As of now, the Miami Dolphins do not have a starting tight end, which is true. And as of now, there really aren't many great tight end options available in free agency. They are none available in free agency as of right now. But thankfully for the Dolphins, the draft is deep with talented tight ends. Miami really should plan to select one in the first 4 rounds. Miami could use a tight end, though frankly they need a tight end who is effective in the red zone. Enter Oklahoma's Mark Andrews, who posted 22 touchdown catches in 3 college seasons. Andrews is so effective in the red zone that the one out of every 5 college career catches resulted in a touchdown. Dolphins coach Adam Gase had hoped Julius Thomas would create mismatch problems, not so much. Upon arrival, Gase had hoped Jordan Cameron would create mismatch problems, not so much. As of for now, Miami's top tight ends are A.J. Derby and Marquise Gray, who are solid players, but Miami must add a pass-catching threat. Andrews is a 6'5", 256-pound, and he has wide receiver skills, if not ideal tight end blocking skills, and that is what Miami needs. We'll talk about that here in a second. I will talk about my opinion on Mark Andrews in a second. Andrews has studied Jason Witten of the Cowboys, great ability to create separation, he said, and Travis Kelce of the Chiefs, a incredible athlete, he said. And Andrews can do some of the things those players do. Andrews is projected to go in the 3rd round, and selecting him there would be appropriate. If Andrews were available in the 4th, even better. Miami has some significant holes to fill: linebacker, tight end, and kicker, and not a lot of money to maneuver the solution they may need to come in the draft. According to the scouting report by NFL.com's Lance Zierlein, Andrews is a red zone rainmaker, crafty and secures contested catches. On the downside, Zierlein notes that Andrews does not have top end speed and not a factor as a blocker. Andrews has type 1 diabetes and referred to former Dolphins and Bears quarterback Jay Cutler as an idol when asked. Okay, I don't know why that information is in here. We do not need to know he has type 1 diabetes. Andrews says it's not a factor at all in his athletic performance, and he has managed it since the age of 9. So, yeah, that sounds like it wouldn't have affected him, especially his dominant career at Oklahoma. So my opinion on the Dolphins tight end situation in general is the Dolphins have to take one at some point in the NFL draft. I would say if I had a draft board and I was in the Dolphins war room right now, one of the bigger needs that this team needs is a tight end, a new age NFL tight end. I hear a lot of different opinions around the Dolphins community, or whatever the heck you want to call it, that the Dolphins need an inline blocker, the Dolphins need more of a traditional tight end. And if you can get if you can get a tight end that can do everything, then more power to you. If you can get a Jeremy Shockey or a Jason Witten in this draft, praise God and thank God, because we need one that can do everything. But if we can get one that's a red zone nightmare, that Adam Gase hasn't had one of those since his Denver days, and he put up 14 touchdowns a year with when he had Julius Thomas, I want that more. I want a Jimmy Graham. I want who else isn't? Who can't play? Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, all of those guys. They're not going to make the Hall of Fame because they're great run blockers. They're not Mike Ditka. There are no more Mike Ditkas. There are no more. Who's another great example of Ozzie Newsome? There's so many different examples in NFL history. You're not going to find a dominant all-around tight end. In today's game, with how many times you pass it, and especially we lost the presence of Jarvis Landry in the middle, adding a tight end that can dominate the middle of the field and can dominate in the red zone just helps the offense. It helps the running game, believe it or not, because when you line him out up outside, you're going to have to either spread your formation out as a defense, and that can open something running lanes in the middle, depending on what kind of formation. If you're running a shotgun run or maybe a read option with Tannehill, that absolutely helps your running game when you have somebody who garners that much attention in the red zone. So the Dolphins need that more than anything, and I'm sick and tired of hearing this. The Dolphins need a new age tight end to put in this offense. It is an absolute joke when you go back and watch some of the Dolphins tape. The only fade route they hit with the tight end, which is one of the more popular and dominant plays in Adam Gase's offense, was Julius Thomas against the Broncos, and that was the only time they hit it. The other time, we had A.J. Derby match up with Marcus Peters, which is a terrible, terrible situation. He obviously didn't come down with that, and believe it or not, yes, Jay Cutler tested Marcus Peters with A.J. Derby. That's what makes Jay Cutler a pick machine, is he does stupid stuff like that. And there's numerous examples of that. And that fade route and that seam play action route has really been taken out of the playbook ever since Adam's been here in Miami. So to take somebody like a Mark Andrews, who absolutely can be a dominant threat in the middle, I think is tremendous. Is he a great run blocker? No. And for somebody who is 6'5" and 265 pounds and can't block any dang linebacker, especially in today's game where all the linebacker, there's no Ray Nitschke's anymore. They're not no Dick Butkus's where they're basically an extra defensive lineman. Those days are gone. These guys are skinny, crap, pass defense linebackers half the time, especially if you're going up against a 3-4 defense, or a hybrid type of a defense, which is more common in the NFL now than it ever has been. You're not going to face those bigger linebackers. So I don't even think that is as big of an issue. We're not playing in 2006, in 2001. We're not playing in that era anymore. These linebackers aren't. There's not a Ray Lewis anymore. I mean, C.J. Mosley is the closest thing you're going to get to a traditional linebacker that's a dominant threat in this league, and maybe Luke Kuechly, but you're not. As the Dolphins in general, we're not going to see people like that. The only one that would scare me in our division is Dante Hightower. That's it. Who I guarantee you we could utilize. And I'm getting off track here. My point is the Dolphins need a tight end. And I don't care if Mark Andrews can't block; he's going to put up points. And what do we need as an offense that has been absolutely terrible? Do we need somebody who's a great blocker? No. Do we need a dominant pass catching, a guy who can get you 150 receiving yards through the air, who can get you 10 touchdowns a year? That's what we need. Now, whether that's Mike Gesicki or that's Mark Andrews, doesn't matter to me. Just take one of the two, because we need a dominant threat in the middle. Now, what disappointed me most in some of the negatives about Mark his combine really disappointed me. I thought he was a lot faster than that. And his tape, I mean, he's getting separation constantly. Now, whether that's the scheme or not, I don't know. But he's been. There's times where there was literally nobody around him because of some of the plays that were drawn up. But there were other times where he just straight up beat his man on a route. So it is kind of confusing that he's that slow. But again, he is 6'5", 265 pounds. I think that would be a tremendous fit, and I hope the Dolphins do take somebody like him. If they take Mike Gesicki or Mark Andrews at any point in the draft, I'll run around naked throughout the neighborhood because we desperately need somebody like that. And I'm sick and tired of it. We don't need a Kobe Fleener or anybody like that. We need a dominant pass catching tight end. And again, like I said, whether it's Mike Gesicki from Penn State or it's Mark Andrews for Oklahoma, bring them on because we need one of them. And I think these two are actually, other than Evan Ingram and even O.J. Howard to a certain extent, those two are actually, I think, will make a bigger impact right away than those two did. And I think Mark Andrews and Mike Gesicki will be two very good tight ends on the next level. So whatever the Dolphins want to do there, we desperately need. Tannehill is literally praying every night to get a tight end because he's never really had a dominant. He had Charles Clay, but Charles Clay isn't Jimmy Graham, and I really want to get Tannehill somebody who's like that, who's a big Gronk-esque big dude who can run routes and has a high catch radius. And Charles was never that. He was a shorter dude. He was athletic, but he was a shorter guy. He wasn't really somebody you could just throw it up to. This next news story, Miami Dolphins' good offensive line depth gets better with this free agent signing. The Miami Dolphins saw value of offense. This comes from the Miami Herald. The Miami Dolphins saw the value of offensive line depth last season when the entire right side of the line was out, and the backups got even better results toward the end of the year than the starters got earlier. Let's see here. On Friday, the Dolphins solidified their depth by re-signing offensive tackle Sam Young to a one-year deal, according to a league source. Young, 31 in June, was a part of the upgrade on the right side when he took over for the injured Juwan James and started the final 6 games at right tackle. Young can also play left tackle in a pinch. And with Young in the fold, the Dolphins have done a very good job this offseason of solidifying the offensive line depth. The team is expected to have a competition at right guard between Ted Larson and Jesse Davis for the starting job. The loser of the competition can serve as valuable and experienced depth. If Larson loses the battle, he can be the backup to Josh Sitton at left guard. If Davis loses out, then he can serve as the backup at right guard and a right tackle between James and Young. Young obviously is the team's number 3 tackle, so he can either go to the left if Laramie Tunsil goes down, or take over at the right with Juwan James moving over to left tackle, where he played as a rookie when Brandon Albert was lost for the season. Center, the Dolphins this offseason kept Jack Brendel to back up starter Daniel Kilgore. And while the Dolphins have other options as backups who will compete for roster spots, such as Isaac Asiata, Zach Stroop, and Eric Smith, the team seems to have forged a backup crew with actual playing experience. Indeed, this might be the best depth the Dolphins have had on the offensive line in years. I could not agree more with Armando in that article. I think he nailed it right on the head. Depth has killed us over the last... You remember the Unicorns? And the reason they were called the Unicorns is because they couldn't stay healthy. They were literal unicorns. You barely ever saw them. And our depth was terrible with Billy Turner, Dallas Thomas. And we're not even going to get into that right now. It was god-awful. So to finally have, a Sam Young backing up whoever, and I think Ted Larson is going to back up Jesse Davis, and I pray to the stars every night that happens. I hate Ted Larson. And I think Jesse Davis is a better player. And I mean that, you know what I mean. But anyway, so those two I love to death. Isaac Asiata, I still have a lot of faith in. Obviously he disappointed a little bit because he got off to such a slow start. But I'm excited to see what he does in his second season. I think the talent is there to be a starter on the offensive line. So the Dolphins' offensive line, I think, is much improved because they're going to be there each and every single week. Unlike past offensive lines where it was uber talented but can never stay healthy. These guys are good enough. They're in my opinion one of the better offensive lines. I think they're going to be one of the better offensive lines this upcoming. I think you could fit them in the top 10 at 9 or 8 or 10, somewhere in there, in the top 10 offensive lines in the league, and I definitely think it's the best in our division. So I'm excited to see what those guys do. And excuse me, they're going to be able to build chemistry with each other, which you hear former offensive line players talk about all the time. Is your offensive line has to have great chemistry to have consistent success, and these guys are going to be able to build that because they're going to be on the field together more than any other Dolphins offensive line has in the last 10 years. So I'm excited to see these guys get to work. Alright, this next news story comes from the Palm Beach Post. Miami Dolphins, do advanced metrics show Amendola Wilson can replace Jarvis Landry? As of now, Jarvis Landry is going to cost the Cleveland Browns $15.9 million in 2018. As we've long explained, the Dolphins didn't want to pay Landry that. And so instead, Miami dealt Landry away and signed veteran Danny Amendola and up-and-comer Albert Wilson in free agency. Amendola's cap hit will be $6 million this season, and Wilson's will be $4.8. As for $10.8 million plus the fourth and seventh rounders acquired in that deal, the Dolphins feel 2 is better than 1. It's not fair to separate intangibles in the equation, but we'll try in this study. Landry was passionate, sometimes too passionate, energetic, not always channeled that in the best way, and fearless. Nobody can fairly doubt this. But Amendola brings work ethic, drive, and a history of clutch play. Wilson brings energy, toughness, and a competitive fire. And now none of these guys are particularly tall. Landry and Amendola are listed at 5'11". Wilson is listed at 5'9". Wilson has an edge in speed, having covered the 40-yard dash in 4.43 seconds, with Amendola at 4.58 and Landry at 4.77. Of course, no receiver in the history of the NFL has more catches over the first 4 years of his NFL career than Landry, so we cannot dispute his production, as well as the connection with Miami Dolphins starting quarterback Ryan Tannehill. We can't say for sure how Amendola and Wilson will mesh with Tannehill. We can't say for sure. Over the course of their careers, some basic metrics can be used to compare the three receivers. For example, yards per game: Landry 63.1, Amendola 37.0, Wilson 28.1. Yards per catch: Wilson 12.5, Landry 10.0, Amendola 9.6. Yards per catch: I guess is another one, yards per catch. Wilson 7.7, Landry 4.6. I don't know, that's a confusing one. We'll move on from that one. Catch rate: Landry catching percentage. Landry 72%, Amendola 68.7%, and Wilson 62.3%. Touchdowns per season: Landry 5.5, Wilson 1.1, Amendola 1.7. Obviously, Amendola 9 seasons, 32 years old, has the largest sample size. Landry 4 seasons, 25 years old, is in his prime, and Wilson 4 seasons, 25 years old, must now prove he is underutilized in Kansas City. Has been underutilized in Kansas City. So I just wanted to run you guys through those numbers really quick. It is interesting. Obviously, you can't compare any other slot receiver to Jarvis Landry because he's just going to blow him out of the water every time, especially not Danny Amendola and Albert Wilson. But I think the point that is brought up, and the point that I tend to agree with the most, is the ball is going to be spread around a whole lot more. I think you're going to see less bubble screens to Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry isn't going to be here, and he's not going to be... Obviously, he ate up a lot of the game plan because he wasn't one of the more consistent players. But when you saw Jakeem Grant get more playing time, all he did was make plays. And I have to think that was factored in this decision. Seeing Jakeem Grant make that many plays, and believe it or not, people want him to play in the slot. When he played in the slot, that's when he didn't perform as well. But when he was on the outside, it gave him more room to work with. He wasn't getting pressed as much due to his speed, and just a less physical job overall when you're lined up outside. And when you give him that much space, he's a really good route runner, and he'll make you miss. And he's just a more productive player out there. So I have to think the Jakeem Grant factored into that, and I can't wait to see what he does with a full season on his hands and to really see what he can do. And I think he'll rise up to the occasion. But to have Wilson and Amendola, who aren't superstar players, they're good role players, to come in, I think is going to help the offense spread the ball around a lot more. Get Devontae Parker more looks, get Jakeem Grant more looks, maybe get Leonte Crew on the field more. Maybe we see Isaiah Ford somehow mixed into there. And the biggest thing is be less predictable. I think is going to be great. Now, that presence over the middle is going to be lost. That just dominant threat of a Jarvis Landry is going to be lost. Somebody else is going to have to step up and be that dominant threat week in and week out and be consistent. That's something that this team is going to dearly miss, is that consistency and that dominance at the receiver position. And again, consistency is the key word there. Devontae Parker, he's had dominant performances. He's had performances that have won us games. Has he done it on a consistent basis? Absolutely not. So he needs to step his game up, and he needs to bring his A game each and every single week. And injuries have a lot to do with that. And his mentality is what it is. I think we've come to know him a little bit more over the years. He just doesn't have that killer instinct like some of these other guys do. I don't know if I'm not going to project stuff onto Devontae Parker because I don't know him. But some of the things that you see, he just doesn't have that. He's not Jarvis Landry. He isn't that uber competitive, passionate dude, and I think that hurts him a little bit. So we'll see if that ever gets into him, if he ever does get consistent, if he ever can stay healthy. Those are huge ifs and big question marks with him. But the Dolphins are in, now I'm not going to say in desperate need, but they are missing that dominant force at the receiver position. Like I said, we don't know if Devontae Parker will ever be that. And right now we're just missing a perennial guy who can go out there and get you 100 yards a game. So who knows? Maybe we address some of that in the draft. Maybe we go out and get a tight end who is capable of dominating a game, because we've seen it. Travis Kelce can carry an offense. Gronk can carry an offense. Players like that can carry one. Is there a Gronk? Is there a Travis in this draft? Is there a Jimmy Graham in his prime in this draft? Who knows? But if you take a chance out on one, that's better than not getting one. So hopefully that's what the Dolphins do. For this last news story, it's really just my opinion on certain things. This whole quarterback situation, I want to talk about for just a second before I let you guys go, is really interesting, and I honestly don't know what the Dolphins are going to do. Obviously, rumor has it is that Colts pick is still up for trade there. And I want to talk about that for a second, because I do think if the Dolphins, packaged, I don't know, a couple second-round picks, maybe a second round this year, which would hurt us dearly, don't get me wrong. That would kill, because we need as many picks as we can get. And that's a bigger investment than a lot of people think, because that second-round pick could be a Shaquem Griffin, could be a Rashaan Evans from Alabama. It could be a Mike Gesicki from Penn State. It could be a Mark Andrews from Oklahoma. Those are some pretty talented guys that could help this football team in a lot of different areas. So to lose that pick would be a huge investment. But if we did do that, even if none of the quarterbacks fell to us that we want, the huge criticism of the Jets is they traded up to 3, and they're not going to be able. They probably would get the 3rd best quarterback in the draft, and everybody's all up in arms about that. But if you trade up to 6, there are certain players that I think in this draft that can legitimately be dominant Pro Bowlers right away. In my opinion, that's better than getting a role player in the second round. Now, don't get me wrong, you could potentially get a Pro Bowler in the second round, absolutely. But I think some of these guys are guaranteed hits. When you talk about Bradley Chubb, a Derwin James, who I think probably, a Denzel Ward, this is if one of those quarterbacks like a Josh Rosen or Sam Darnold somehow fell, and I doubt either one of those two would ever fall to 6, or maybe a Josh Allen or a Baker Mayfield you could get with that 6th overall pick. I'm saying if those guys don't fall, you still have a chance to get a Bradley Chubb, a Derwin James, a Denzel Ward, who else? The Saquon Barkley. Like, those guys are really, those are future Pro Bowl players. And I really hope the Dolphins can seriously consider trading up to that 6th spot to make a franchise-changing move. If we got Saquon Barkley, I mean, you get, like, with Kenyon Drake and Saquon and Tannehill and the offensive line upgrades that we've made, those guys would make up for the losses of a Jarvis Landry. Big time. Like, that would drastically change our offense, and it would be amazing to watch each and every single Sunday. So I would absolutely think that would be worth, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and swapping of the first. And obviously, that's a huge investment, but I think it would be worth it for that pick. And that might sound a little crazy, but I think this Dolphins offense, or this Dolphins franchise just in general, and I think you could stay at 11 and still get Roquan Smith or even a Derwin James, who I think both of those guys are Pro Bowlers. But I'm saying, if you have a chance to get Bradley Chubb or Saquon Barkley, I think you should throw your hat in the ring there, depending on which you have to get up, or a Baker Mayfield or a Josh Allen, who I'm less high on than a lot of other people. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there, see what you guys think. Who would you take if the Dolphins traded up to 6, who would you take if Bradley Chubb and Saquon were there? Which of the two would you take? Because I think both of those guys are going to be great players, regardless. I think Bradley Chubb has a chance to be as dominant as Khalil Mack or Von Miller. That's how good he is, and to get a player like that would be amazing. And Saquon has a chance to be a Hall of Famer as well. So I'm Skagster1083. I hope the Dolphins do something crazy like that. I'm very excited for this draft. Very excited to see who the Dolphins select, because of the run on quarterbacks in the first round, they have a very, very good selection of high-quality players when you talk about Derwin James or Roquan Smith and some of the other players in this draft. So I'm very excited to see what they do. I'm Skagster1083, and I will see you guys in the next one.